The Magic Wardrobe, C.S. Lewis. The Chronicles of Narnia are 6 books written by C.S. Lewis. They are about an imaginary country called Narnia, which is ruled by the evil White Witch. It is always winter there, cold and snowing. 4 children discover Narnia. They help to defeat the White Witch and to bring warmth and sunshine to Narnia again. Read this text from the first of the 6 books. It is about how Lucy discovers Narnia. Through the Wardrobe. Peter, Susan, Edmund and Lucy lived in London. But one day they were sent to stay in the house of an old professor. He lived in the heart of the countryside, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. "I prefer the countryside to the town, don't you?" said Lucy on their first night at the professor's house. "Yes, I do," said Peter. "This is a wonderful place. Did you see those mountains and the woods? Let's go and explore them tomorrow." "Let's do that," said the other children. The next morning, the children looked out of the window. It was raining heavily. They could not see the mountains or the woods or even the stream in the garden. "Oh no," said Edmund. "I knew it would be raining." "Stop grumbling, Edmund," said Susan. "It'll stop raining soon, and in the meantime, there are lots of books." "I'd rather explore the house than read books all day," said Peter. "Good idea!" they all shouted. It was a very large house, and it was full of unexpected places. Some doors led to spare bedrooms. There was a long room full of pictures. Then came 3 steps down and 5 steps up. One door led onto a balcony. They found rooms full of books. Then they looked in a room that was empty except for one big wardrobe. There was nothing else in the room at all. "Nothing there," said Peter, and they all followed him out again. All except Lucy. She stayed behind because she wanted to see what was inside the wardrobe. She felt sure that it would be locked. But to her surprise, the door opened easily. She looked inside. There were several long coats hanging in a row. She stepped into the wardrobe and pushed through the coats. She found that there was a second row of coats hanging behind the first one. It was quite dark in there. She stretched her arms out towards the back of the wardrobe. She took a step further in, then 2 or 3 steps. Still she could not feel the back of the wardrobe. "This must be an enormous wardrobe," thought Lucy. She pushed the coats aside and took another step. Something crunched under her feet. She bent down and touched the floor with her hand. She felt something soft, powdery, and extremely cold. The next moment, she felt something rubbing against her face. It was not a soft coat, but something hard, rough, and even prickly. "Why, it's just like branches of trees," she cried out. She saw a light far ahead of her. Something cold and soft was falling on her. She looked around in amazement. She was standing in the middle of a wood at night time with snow under her feet and snowflakes falling through the air. Lucy felt frightened, but she was excited and curious too. She looked back over her shoulder. There, between the dark tree trunks, she could still see the open doorway of the wardrobe and the empty room in which it stood. It was still daylight there. "If anything went wrong, I could still go back," Lucy thought. Mr. Tumnus. She began to walk forward towards the light in the wood. To her surprise, she found that it was a lamp post. While she stood there, she heard the sound of feet coming towards her. A very strange person stepped out from the trees into the light. He was a little taller than Lucy, and he carried an umbrella, white with snow. He wore a red scarf around his neck and had a short pointed beard. From the waist upwards, he was like a man, but his legs were covered with black hair and shaped like a goat's. He had goat hooves instead of feet and two small horns on the top of his head. He was a faun. "Good evening," said Lucy. Good evening, said Fawn. "Excuse me, but are you a girl?" "My name is Lucy," said Lucy. She was not quite sure what the question meant. "My name is Tumnus," said the Fawn. "Are you a human?" "Of course I'm a human," said Lucy, still a little puzzled. "Forgive me," said the Fawn. "I've never seen a human before. How did you get into Narnia?" "Narnia? What's that?" asked Lucy. "This is the land of Narnia," said the Fawn. "Ah," said Lucy. "I haven't heard of Narnia before. I got in through the wardrobe." "Ah," said Mr. Tumnus. "I did not work enough at geography when I was at school. I haven't heard of a country called Wardrobe before. But we shall both catch a cold if we stand here, talking in the snow. Come and have some tea with me." "Thank you very much, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy, "but I think I should go home now." "It's only just round the corner," said Mr. Tumnus, "and I have lots of nice things to eat. Come." He took Lucy's arm and led her deeper into the wood. Mr. Tumnus lived in a very comfortable cave. While Lucy sat by the fire, Mr. Tumnus gave her nice food to eat and played beautiful music on a flute. They talked happily for a long time. At last, Lucy got up. "I really must go home now," she said. "The others will wonder where I have gone." Suddenly, Mr. Tumnus burst into tears. Oh, he sobbed. "I'm such a bad fawn." "Why?" asked Lucy. "What have you done?" "I work for the White Witch," Mr. Tumnus said sadly. "She ordered me to catch any human boys or girls in the wood and take them to her. I am a kidnapper. I pretended to be your friend and asked you to tea. But all the time, I was waiting for you to fall asleep. And then I was going to tell the White Witch." Lucy started to shake. "But you won't, Mr. Tumnus. You won't tell her, will you?" "Of course not," said Mr. Tumnus. "Not now. I didn't know what humans were like before I met you. Now that I know you, I can't give you to the witch. I will show you the way back to the lamppost. But it is dangerous. We must be off at once, quickly and quietly. No one else must see you." They hurried back to the lamppost without speaking a word. "Can you find your way back from here?" Mr. Tumnus whispered. Lucy looked between the trees. She could just see a patch of light. "Yes," she said, "I can see the wardrobe door." "Then run home as quick as you can," said the fawn. Back to the empty room. Lucy was frightened. She ran towards the patch of daylight as fast as she could. Soon she felt coats instead of branches and a wooden floor under her feet instead of snow. She jumped out of the wardrobe into the empty room where the adventure had begun, shut the wardrobe door tightly behind her, and looked around, panting for breath. Lucy could hear the voices of the other 3 children outside the door in the corridor. "I'm here," she shouted. "I'm back. I'm all right." "What are you talking about, Lucy?" asked Susan. "I've been away for hours," said Lucy. "Were you looking for me?" "Don't be silly," said Susan. "We all came out of that room just a moment ago." "But there's a magic wardrobe," Lucy cried. There's a wood inside it, and it's snowing. Lucy rushed back into the room, flung open the wardrobe door, and pulled back the coats. There, she cried. See for yourselves. Everyone looked, and they all saw an ordinary wardrobe. There were no trees and no snow, only the back of the wardrobe. What a good joke, said Peter. We almost believed you. Lucy tried to say something and burst into tears.